Commander Karak stepped out of her sleek spacecraft onto Earth's military base, her tall, metallic-scaled body gleaming under the morning sun. Her expression showed nothing but disgust as she observed the human soldiers gathering around her ship. To her, they looked weak and small, hardly worth the Syndicate's time. The landing pad buzzed with activity as human military personnel moved about their duties. Carax's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, adjusting to Earth's bright sunlight. She carried advanced weapons that made the humans' guns look like toys, and her battle armor could probably withstand their strongest weapons. "Welcome to Earth Defense Base Alpha, Commander Carax." A human female stepped forward, wearing what Carax considered to be primitive combat gear. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen. I'll be your liaison during your stay with us." Carax towered over Captain Chen by at least 2 feet. She looked down at the human, noticing how fragile she appeared. No scales for protection, no enhanced strength visible in her frame. How had these creatures survived this long in the galaxy? "Your welcome is noted, Captain," Carax replied coldly. She handed over her diplomatic credentials, mandatory for this military exchange program. Inside, she felt angry about being forced to spend time with these primitives. The Syndicate claimed it was necessary for gathering intelligence, but to Carax, it felt like punishment. As they walked through the base, Carax secretly recorded everything she saw. The humans' vehicles seemed basic, their weapons outdated, and their security measures laughably simple. She noticed Captain Chen trying to make conversation, talking about Earth's weather and military traditions. "Your training facilities are this way," Captain Chen said, leading her toward a large building. "We've prepared a special program to help you understand our combat methods." Carax almost laughed. What could these humans possibly teach her about combat? Her species had been fighting wars across galaxies, while humans were still learning to make fire. Still, she followed, remembering her true mission: assess their weaknesses and report back to the Syndicate. The inside of the building surprised her slightly. The training equipment, while looking simple, showed signs of clever design. Carax watched as human soldiers practiced combat moves she didn't recognize. Their movements seemed inefficient, yet they worked together in ways she hadn't seen before. "You'll start tomorrow," Captain Chen explained, showing her a schedule. "We'll begin with basic integration exercises. Your quarters are ready, and you'll have access to most base facilities." Carax nodded, already planning how to use this access for gathering intelligence. These humans were foolish to trust her so easily. As she followed Captain Chen to her quarters, she noticed something odd. The humans didn't seem afraid of her. Instead, they looked curious, even friendly. It bothered her more than she wanted to admit. That night, in her assigned room, Carax sent her first message to the Syndicate. "Humans appear weak and technologically inferior. However, recommend careful observation. Something about their behavior doesn't match known patterns of primitive species." She looked out her window at the Earth's moon, thinking about her mission. These humans would never suspect that their friendly exchange visitor was actually studying them for potential conquest. Carax smiled to herself, her sharp teeth gleaming in the moonlight. This assignment might be boring, but at least it would be easy. Little did she know, she was completely wrong about both things. The morning sun hadn't yet risen when Carax arrived at the training field. She found Captain Chen already there, leading a group of humans through what looked like a simple combat drill. Carax watched them move, noticing how they worked together instead of competing to be the best. "Commander, join us," Captain Chen called out, waving her over. Carax wanted to refuse, but she remembered her mission. She needed to learn their weaknesses. The training started with what humans called team-building exercises. Carax found it ridiculous. In the Syndicate, warriors proved their worth through solo combat. Yet here she was, participating in activities that required her to trust humans to catch her if she fell backward. "The point isn't to show off individual strength," Captain Chen explained, seeing Carax's frustration. "It's about learning to work together, to cover each other's weaknesses." Carax snorted. "In real battle, you can't rely on others." Only the strong survive. Captain Chen smiled mysteriously. Maybe that's what you think now. Let's try something different. They moved to an obstacle course that looked simple at first glance. Crack stepped forward confidently, certain she could complete it easily with her superior strength and speed. She was wrong. The course changed as she moved through it. Barriers appeared where none had been before. Simple-looking walls turned out to be impossible to climb alone. What looked like primitive technology adapted to her attempts to overcome it. After her third failed attempt, Carax watched in surprise as a human team completed the course easily. They weren't stronger or faster than her, but they moved like one unit, each person helping the others. Interesting design, isn't it? Captain Chen said, standing beside her. Would you like to try it with a team? Carax hesitated. Her mission was to gather intelligence, not play games. But something about the way these humans worked together bothered her. It didn't make sense according to any military doctrine she knew. She joined a team for the next attempt. The humans treated her like one of their own, showing her their signals and movement patterns. To her surprise, they reached the end of the course together. Later that day, Carax sent another message to the syndicate. Humans display unusual training methods. They deliberately practice inefficient group tactics instead of developing individual combat skills. However, their technology shows signs of hidden complexity. Recommend deeper investigation. In her quarters that evening, Carax reviewed her recordings of the day. She noticed things she had missed before. The obstacle course's adaptive technology. The way human teams communicated without speaking. The strange patterns in their seemingly simple equipment. Captain Chen. She mumbled to herself, "What are you really teaching me?" She didn't realize it yet, but the humans were slowly changing how she saw everything. And this was just the beginning. Carax moved silently through the dimly lit corridors of Research Facility Beta. Her night vision allowed her to see clearly as she searched for evidence of advanced human technology. After 2 weeks of training exercises, she had noticed strange patterns that didn't match humanity's supposed technological level. The facility seemed empty at this late hour. She had carefully timed her investigation between security patrols, using information gathered during her authorized tours. Her scaled fingers touched the smooth walls, searching for hidden panels or doors. Suddenly, her sensitive ears picked up a faint humming sound. Following it led her to a sealed door marked Restricted Access. Shield Research. Carax's heart raced. Shield technology was exactly what the Syndicate wanted to know about. Using a device hidden in her ceremonial badge, she bypassed the door's security. Inside, holographic displays filled the room with blue light, showing complex equations and designs. Carax's eyes widened as she realized what she was seeing. "Impossible," she whispered. The humans hadn't just developed shield technology. They had perfected it. The design showed protection systems far beyond what the Syndicate possessed. As she downloaded the data, the lights suddenly went out. Emergency sirens blared through the facility. Red warning lights flashed as heavy security doors slammed shut throughout the building. Warning: critical power failure detected. Emergency protocols engage. All personnel evacuate immediately. Carax ran for the exit, but found herself trapped. The security systems had activated, turning the simple-looking facility into a deadly maze. Laser grids appeared from nowhere, cutting off corridors. Defense turrets emerged from walls, tracking any movement. She tried using her superior strength to force open a door, but it wouldn't budge. Her advanced weapons seemed useless against the facility's defenses. Even her emergency beacon couldn't penetrate the building's shields. A defense turret caught her by surprise. The blast hit her leg, leaving a serious burn. Carax fell, shocked by the power of the primitive human weapon. She dragged herself behind a corner, breathing heavily. More security measures activated around her. The air began to thin as life support systems failed. For the first time in her life, the proud Syndicate warrior felt real fear. She was trapped in a facility designed to contain threats far more dangerous than her. As consciousness started to fade, Carax realized her terrible mistake. She had underestimated humans completely. Their primitive appearance wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a clever deception. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was a flashing message on a nearby screen. Containment protocols active. Intruder detected. Awaiting authorized response team. Carax woke up in total darkness. Her leg throbbed where the defense turret had hit her, and the air felt thinner with each breath. She tried to stand but fell back, her usually strong legs shaking from pain and lack of oxygen. The facility's defenses had grown more aggressive. What started as simple containment measures now seemed actively hostile. Robotic drones patrolled the corridors, their sensors scanning for movement. The laser grids had multiplied, creating an ever-changing maze that trapped her in an increasingly smaller space. "Think," she muttered to herself, checking her equipment. Her advanced syndicate weapons were useless. The facility's systems had somehow disabled them. Even her battle armor's enhanced features had stopped working. She was reduced to relying on her natural abilities, which didn't seem like much anymore. A drone passed nearby, its red scanning beam sweeping the area. Carax held perfectly still, using a technique she had learned from watching the humans during stealth training. The drone paused, its sensors confused by her minimal heat signature. She took advantage of the moment to crawl toward what looked like a ventilation shaft. Her scaled hands gripped the metal grating, trying to pull it free. In the past, such a task would have been easy for her superior strength. Now, weakened by injury and thinning air, she struggled. The grating finally came loose, but the noise attracted attention. Defense turrets activated, filling the corridor with weapon fire. Carax dove into the shaft, dragging her injured leg behind her. A blast caught her shoulder, adding another burning wound to her collection. Inside the shaft, she found herself facing another terrible truth. She was lost. The ventilation system was a maze of turns and drops, each looking identical to the last. Her people's natural sense of direction, usually so reliable, was confused by the facility's strange construction. "Is this how I die?" she wondered aloud. Trapped in a human facility, alone and helpless. The thought brought bitter laughter. She had come to study human weaknesses, only to discover her own. Through a nearby grating, she saw a screen still functioning. It showed the facility's power core becoming unstable. Soon, the whole building might collapse or explode. Her death would be certain then. Carax closed her eyes, thinking of her home, of the Syndicate's great cities and mighty fleets. How foolish they all were, thinking humans were primitive. These simple beings had created defenses that could defeat their best warrior without even trying. A distant sound caught her attention. Voices, human voices. Was it rescue, or would they simply let her die here? After all, she was their enemy, even if they didn't know it yet. The sound of footsteps grew louder. Through the ventilation grating, Carax saw shadows moving in the emergency lights. She recognized Captain Chen's voice, giving clear, quick orders to a rescue team. "All teams, activate your shield harmonics. The facility's defenses will treat us as hostiles otherwise." Chen's voice was calm despite the danger. "Remember your training. Work in pairs. No heroes today." Carax watched in amazement as the human rescue team moved through the facility. They carried what looked like basic equipment, but she now knew better than to trust appearances. Each pair of soldiers moved in perfect sync, using simple tools in ways she'd never imagined. When defense turrets activated, the humans didn't try to destroy them. Instead, they used small devices that redirected the targeting systems. The deadly laser grids that had trapped Carax were defeated by mirrors and prisms, tools so basic she had dismissed them during training. "Life signs detected," one soldier called out, pointing toward Carax's hiding place. In the ventilation system, Captain Chen approached the grating. "Commander Carax, we're here to get you out." Carax hesitated. Her pride wanted to refuse their help, but her wounds and the thinning air left no choice. The grating. "I can't move it from this side." Two soldiers stepped forward, working together with tools that looked like simple crowbars. Somehow, they channeled energy through the metal, creating a field that neutralized the facility's security locks. As they pulled her out, Carax saw the true extent of their rescue operation. Teams worked in coordinated patterns, each group handling different challenges. Some maintained portable air supplies, others monitored the facility's deteriorating systems, all moving like parts of a single organism. "Can you walk?" Chen asked, checking Carax's wounds. "The facility's core is becoming unstable. We need to move fast." Carax tried to stand but stumbled. Without hesitation, 2 human soldiers moved to support her, their seemingly fragile bodies somehow bearing her weight. They had modified their equipment to accommodate her larger frame and different biology. "Why?" Carax asked as they moved through the facility. "Why risk yourselves for me?" Captain Chen glanced back while disabling another security measure. "Because that's what we do. No one gets left behind, not even." She paused, then smiled slightly. "Not even someone who might not be here just for friendly exchange." The implications of Chen's words hit Carax hard. They knew, or at least suspected. Yet here they were, risking their lives to save her. The rescue team moved quickly through the facility's collapsing corridors. Warning lights flashed everywhere, and the building's structure groaned under growing pressure from the unstable core. Carax could hear the power systems overloading behind the walls. 3 minutes to critical failure," announced a calm computer voice. "Please evacuate immediately." Captain Chen led the way, using what looked like a simple tablet to track safe paths through the chaos. The rescue team maintained perfect formation, even as parts of the ceiling began to fall. Carax noticed how they adjusted their movements to accommodate her injuries, never once complaining about her slowing them down. They were almost at the exit when Carax's sensitive ears picked up a sound above them. She looked up to see a massive support beam starting to crack. Her enhanced vision could see the metal breaking in slow motion. The beam was directly above Captain Chen, who was too focused on guiding the team to notice. In that moment, time seemed to slow down for Carax. She had vital intelligence about human technology in her data recorder. If Chen died, escaping with that information would be easier. But before Carax could finish that thought, Chen turned back toward her. "Watch out!" the human captain shouted, sprinting toward Carax. The beam was falling fast now. Chen slammed into Carax with surprising force, pushing the much larger alien out of the beam's path. But there wasn't time for Chen to save herself. The beam crashed down, catching her leg and pinning her to the floor. "Captain." The rescue team moved to help, but Chen waved them back. "Get Commander Carax out first. That's an order." Chen's voice was strained but firm. "The core's about to go critical. There's no time for all of us." Carax stood frozen, her mind racing. The data she carried could change everything for the Syndicate. This was her chance to complete her mission, to prove humans were inferior. All she had to do was leave this one human behind. But as she looked at Chen, trapped and still giving orders to protect others, Carax felt something change inside her. This human had just sacrificed herself for an enemy. How could that be weakness? The facility shook violently. Time was running out. Carax had to choose: escape with her vital intelligence, or save the human who had proved everything she believed wrong. Carax moved without thinking. Her clawed hands gripped the fallen beam, muscles straining as she lifted it. The weight was enormous, far more than she'd ever tried to move before, but something inside her had changed. She couldn't let Chen die. "Help me," she shouted to the rescue team. They rushed forward, working together to lift the beam. Chen crawled free, her leg badly injured but still functional. "The core's going critical," someone shouted. The facility's walls were breaking apart now, and the air was filled with electrical discharges from failing systems. Carax scooped Chen up in her arms, surprising herself with this instinctive action. The human captain was so light, so fragile, yet she had shown strength Carax had never understood before. "Everyone move. Follow emergency route Beta," Chen commanded from Carax's arms, still leading despite her injury. The team responded instantly, forming a protective formation around them as they ran. The facility was collapsing behind them. Carax's powerful legs carried them forward, following the humans' guidance. She realized they were using paths she hadn't known existed, shortcuts that didn't appear on any official map. "Left here," Chen directed, pointing to what looked like a solid wall. A team member pressed something, and the wall split open, revealing an escape tunnel. They rushed through just as a massive explosion rocked the facility. The tunnel protected them from the blast, but the shockwave still knocked them forward. Carax curled her body around Chen, using her armored scales to shield the human from debris. When the dust settled, they emerged into the early morning light. Medical teams were waiting, quickly moving to help Chen. Carax stood back, watching the humans work, seeing everything differently now. These weren't the primitive beings she had first judged them to be. Their strength wasn't in physical power or advanced weapons. It was in how they worked together, how they valued every life, even an enemy's. "Why did you come back for me?" Chen asked as medics treated her leg. "You could have escaped with whatever data you collected." Carax reached into her armor and pulled out her data recorder. Without hesitation, she crushed it in her scaled hand. "Because you showed me something more valuable than any technology. You showed me what real strength is." 1 week after the facility incident, Carax stood before her communication terminal. The Syndicate was demanding her final report. Her clawed fingers hovered over the controls as she considered her next move carefully. Behind her, Earth's sunset painted the sky in colors her 4 eyes had learned to appreciate. She could hear human soldiers training outside, their teamwork now something she understood rather than despised. Captain Chen had recovered quickly, thanks to medical technology that the humans had kept hidden. Like everything else about them, their healing abilities were far more advanced than they appeared. "Have you decided?" Chen asked, entering the room on her newly healed leg. She didn't need to explain what she meant. They both knew this moment would come. Carax turned from the terminal. "The Syndicate believes humans are primitive, easy targets for conquest. They sent me to confirm this." She gestured at the destroyed data recorder on her desk. "I was supposed to bring back proof of your weaknesses. And instead," Chen's voice was gentle, but her eyes were sharp. "Instead, I learned that everything we believed was wrong. Your primitive appearance is a choice. Your technology, your weapons, your defenses, you keep them hidden not from weakness, but from wisdom." Carax walked to the window, watching human children playing in a nearby park. "The Syndicate values power above all else. We display our strength to intimidate others. But you," she turned back to Chen, "you hide your strength to preserve peace. You risk your lives to save enemies. You work together instead of fighting alone." Making her decision, Carax began typing her report. "I'm telling the Syndicate that Earth is under my protection. I will explain how your primitive technology defeated their best warrior, how your weakness turned out to be your greatest strength." Chen smiled. "They won't believe you." "No," Carax agreed. "They will probably send others. But I'll be here, helping Earth prepare. Because now I understand. True strength isn't in conquering others. It's in protecting them." She sent the message, then did something she had never done before. She extended her hand to Chen, mimicking the human gesture of friendship. "If you'll have me, I want to stay. Not as an observer or a warrior, but as an ally. There is much more I need to learn from humans." Chen took her hand without hesitation. "Welcome home, Carax." As they watched the sun set together, Carax realized that she had come to Earth looking for an enemy's weaknesses, but had found instead a new kind of strength and a place where she truly belonged.